Hey, thank you for joining me for another episode of Triathlon Tips, Nutrition, Training, and More. I'm your host, Tridoc7, or Mitchell MD, and this week we're going to talk about protein, the ever-present issue with protein, how much to take, what kind to take, and issues surrounding the myth and the mystery of protein. I hope to clarify some of that for you. This is going to be the first of several short episodes on protein and different types. I've been doing a lot of research on this and talking to some of my fellow physician triathlete friends and have a lot of insight to share with you. That's part one. Part two is I want to share with you an exciting project that I've been working on over the last several months. This is going to unfold and how it applies to triathlon and more specifically you over the next several months. So let's get into it. So if you've read any of my previous posts or listened to previous episodes of protein that I've talked about on the podcast or on videos that I've shot around the globe, the reality of it is that, yes, we do need protein. We need about 0.8 to 1.2 grams maximum per kilogram, but a lot of us tend to overdo it. Myself, sometimes I'm guilty as charged, but the issue not only lies in how you take in protein, but what source you utilize. I'm certainly no vegan or vegetarian. I try to eat my share of fruits and vegetables and whole foods, largely in part due to their potent antioxidant effects, which is important. I'll talk about that a little bit later in terms of hard physical training and recovery. But animal protein certainly has a lot of negative properties to it. I'm not downing a good quality hamburger or steak. I certainly like my share of meat, but I do love seafood and cold water fish. But many of us consume way too much protein. What happens with the extra protein that we consume? It's converted basically to fat. Just like any excess caloric intake, it turns into fat. So that's part one. Part two is meat, particularly how you prepare the meat, whether it's fried or grilled or flame broiled, can generate some changes in the protein structure of the meat itself and generate some carcinogens, and this is well documented in the medicine and sports medicine literature, particularly. One of the concerns that I often hear, and I hear it from my own family members who are diehard meat eaters, so to speak, is, aren't you starving and aren't you cutting yourself or your kids short of protein and the vital building blocks that we all need to generate muscle, repair damage from exercise, and just recover in general? Well, the reality of it is that certainly there are essential amino acids, and there's 20 different amino acids altogether, but we can make 11 of those just inside our bodies just based on what we take in on a daily basis. So if you're eating a balanced meal, balanced diet, you're going to take in a fair number of essential amino acids right off the bat, which are vital to building proteins. The other issue is there's certainly essential amino acids, and these are 9 different proteins that we need to get from our diet. And without these, we can't really synthesize all the vital proteins and enzymes that we need. The majority of these, actually, in fact, all of these can be found in the plant family, so to speak. So just look around in the natural world. Look at some of the fastest, largest, and strongest animals. They're pretty much all herbivores. They eat grass, they eat vegetables, they don't eat each other, they don't eat meat. And so what does that say? That says that really nature has provided its own intrinsic building blocks through its own food supply. And so if you're eating a balanced diet, mixing up the variety of fruits and vegetables, adding in some beans, some lentils, I like tofu, I like quinoa, and certainly nuts, you're going to get all the essential amino acids that you need. The other issue is acidity. Meats, particularly meats and dairy, generate acid inside the body. Our bodies function optimally at just slightly alkaline pH, and so 7.4, so to speak, somewhere in that ballpark, is sort of the optimal range where we function best. Our enzymatic systems are at top performance, and shifting the balance to an acidic environment makes the body work overtime to neutralize that, and that expends a lot of energy, and things just don't function, don't run as smooth. And so loading up on animal sources of protein and also large amounts of milk or dairy products can generate a little bit of excess acid in some people and a lot in others. And so, certainly milk has some value. There's calcium and protein in there, but it is slightly acidic, and a suitable alternative that actually will grow on you and likely your kids if you choose to is almond milk, rice milk, coconut milk, or soy milk. Those are all options. And while there's certainly some concerns about soy and what's actually in soy milk, and also a substance called phytoestrogens or plant-based estrogens, there are some alternatives, and there are a few companies that actually synthesize and verify the actual contents of the soy that's in there, and you can get a pretty good handle on what type of protein you're getting. So that being said, just keep in mind about what you put into your body and certainly the long-term effects of that. If you're going to shift to a plant-based source of protein, I commend you on your efforts. The reality is that it's a much cleaner fuel, a much cleaner protein, and without a lot of the drastic and negative side effects. Particularly what I'm getting at is the artery-clogging saturated fats that are just loaded inside meat and steak. If you look at the nutritional content for a ribeye steak, you'll be shocked at the amount of fat that's in there. While certainly our bodies need some fat, it's just not that much of fat. And there are certainly different types of fat, whether it's saturated, polyunsaturated, etc. So that's another important thing to keep in mind. We've talked a little bit about the omega-3 to omega-6 ratio, which is a type of free fatty acid. Omega-3 is a potent anti-inflammatory. It's what you find in fish oil capsules, cold water fish, salmon, things like that. The omega-6 is the inflammatory type of fatty acid, and unfortunately in the Western North American diet, the ratio is really skewed. Some studies have cited up to 60-1 in favor of the inflammatory omega-6 acids compared to the omega-3. And so that's another thing to keep in mind when you're looking at your diet. The last point I wanted to bring up about protein is there's a variety of forms. One of my preferred forms is hemp, which is a plant-based protein. It's got a pretty complete amino acid profile. The taste is a little bit different than the typical whey or casein protein powders that you might come across. The other thing that I like to add in is cordyceps mushrooms, and that comes in a variety of forms, and I'm going to talk about that in a separate post and podcast, so you can look for that in the near future. So moving on to the last thing I wanted to mention on this week's short podcast is a project that I've been working on over the last several months. It involves a group of physicians who are also endurance athletes and triathletes, and also some pretty impressive PhD scientists. And what we're working on is basically nutrigenomics and how your nutrition can turn on and off certain genes inside your body. Many of us are falsely under the impression that the genetic makeup that we have now is identical to what it was when we were born, and that's really far from the truth. Our DNA changes with time, stressors, environment, what we do to ourselves, red meat consumption, tobacco consumption, alcohol consumption, pollution, a whole host of variety of things affect that. And so by specifically targeting your genome with nutritional strategies, you can really alter the expression of certain genes, that is, turning on and off certain genes, which may lead to chronic disease, chronic inflammation, diabetes, cancer, etc. And so this research is fascinating. This project is just evolving and unfolding, and I'll share more with you about this in the coming months. One of the most exciting things that I'm involved with right now is sort of a comprehensive genomic analysis that actually can predict whether or not the type of exercise that you're using to improve your endurance and your health in general is adequate, suitable, or really the best choice based on some genetic markers. And I'll share more about that with you in the coming few weeks and months as we get rolling further into this project. So as always, I'd love to have some comments and feedback. You can reach me at comments@tridoc7.com, comments@tridoc7.com. You can find me on Facebook sometimes, although I'm not there on that platform as much as I used to. I'm on Twitter at Dr. Mitchell MD, and if you hunt around, you'll find me working on many other projects related to health, wellness, longevity, and of course, triathlon and endurance sports. I hope you have a great week training. Be well, and I'll talk to you soon.